Okay, sorry, I had to interrupt because I got a call from them. You set up we'll call you back option on WhatsApp, and they call me back. But once you start getting a little frazzled and you start saying, why should I, after paying for 4 months for something that I never used, and the reason, this is what I was getting at before, is that the reason they disconnect your line and penalize you the reactivation fee and whatever late fees or what have you is because you always opened the page and saw that everything was paid for, and or let's say you didn't open up the page but you're thinking, I pay my 26 bucks every month and whatever. And then suddenly it turns out that, this SIM was there and it wasn't supposed to be there, included in your bill. That means that the disconnection, the reconnection fee, and everything that happened as a consequence is their fault. So when you start explaining this to people, this guy called from Tirana somewhere. Tirana is here across the old Yugoslavia countries. I forget what the capital where it is. I think it's Albania. Um, Calls me, and they all kind of, they've lived in Italy, and so they speak Italian like me though, and so two of us trying to talk, they lose their patience and they hang up on you. Italy is famous for services hanging up the phone on you. Now, they do this everywhere. They have a little button, and I'm sure that they're also instructed when they start making moral logic, and they don't say it. They don't say, and they're right, make sure you hang up. But if a person starts arguing ethically, they don't insult, they don't, but they start making an ethical, moral argument with the person, it probably means that they're right about what they're trying to get across to the operator. So these people must be told that when it gets like that, just hang up on them because they do it all the time. When I demonstrate that their protocol does not cover the problem I'm suffering, and I'm approaching the point that, and so therefore they keep all that money, boom, they hang up. He just hung up on me. And this accumulates with consistency. This goes back to the beginning of the video. It accumulates for these companies, hiding behind their computers, hiding behind customer service agents in God knows what part of the world, are at the receiving end of a conveyor belt that brings them extra money, not regarding their actual agreed to costs and administrative systems, but money that comes from human error. Human error can be started in the same context when, for example, in fine writing, they would add, and if you decide to change your mind, you're going to have to send a letter or send us back the equipment. Otherwise, we're going to charge you 300 euros if we don't get equipment that costs them 22 euros, to buy. We have to pay 200 for returning if we don't return it. And you're like, where did it say all that? Or where did it say that the savings only come if I activate this program before such and such date? Oh, it's written in the contract. So this has been going on for a while. The power has been taken from us. And then, as we all have a subconscious conscientiousness to be ethically and morally righteous towards our fellow human being, it starts off, or it appears, or is sold as something where we take this into consideration. Don't think that we're taking advantage of you. You're in control is a famous slogan. I don't know how many times I've written that, and I've seen that on Facebook. You're in control. It's your choice. They know. They know politically. It's your choice. That's what they tell the Falklanders, right? It's your choice, and so they are the ones that saying, "Hey, because there are islands." All the real stuff that's behind the reasons the British won't let go of the islands, and they have the islanders hold up the argument about self-determination against the Argentinians, when this is something that started between Argentina and Britain before they ever got to the islands, but is because it's your choice. You're in control. You have the politicians say this. We all know that it is only fair that in any kind of exchange, in any kind of agreement of obtaining or sharing um, product, buying product, services, what have you, we all know that ethically and morally it must be fair and just, and that we retain power on both sides. Whenever you pass that buck, you're looking at things. You don't distance yourself tremendously. You may get home and find out that it was broken. Well, you walk right back to that market and you give him back that product, and there that moment occurs again, because we all know that that product should not have been given for the money that was or given right a few minutes before. So they return you your money. They give you back. You give back the product. Right. This still happens, or at least initially, we start off by misgrudgingly, because Walmart does not have, they have a survey, they return things, and there are places where I go to the Chinese store here in Rome, in Italy, and they give you back, because that is what is normal and natural between human beings, retaining equally the power between both sides of the counter. There's that agreement. What these companies are doing, phone companies, internet companies, um, banks, just a bunch of, services. They have somehow. Why? Because it's human nature. If you can get away with something, not being called on, not being called on being on stealing inadvertently, taking more than what I actually said you could take, and you get home, you realize you had more. Nobody's watching, nobody knew. Human nature will try to get away with things. Some people say we'll try to get with as much as they can. I don't know if that's true. I think there's a place also in our nature where we want to reconcile, and make sure that we come back to that oneness, to the ethical, to the moral, equally shared power place, which we all know and are aware of when we start off any of these ventures. But when it comes to services like the phone company, car financing, internet services, any kind of financing, banks, or all of a sudden they are the ones that say, "This is how we're going to do it." Who is saying this is how we're going to do it? Another human being. And so behind, the more they barricade themselves behind elites, social elites of a certain corporate class of people, corporate doors, protections and laws and offices and high-rise buildings, and the more they distance themselves from the buyer, the greater that the form of that apparatus created within the realm of their control is. And in there are conveyor belts that arrive with the casualties of human nature. The times that you didn't make it on time and you had to, you were late for one minute, and the bank closed, and the next day was, there was a penalty, and where it could have been fixed by the bank saying, okay, we saw you trying to get in the bank, and we had locked the door already. We'll take that. We'll just write this that you came on that day because we remember seeing you that day. We just couldn't reopen the door. That can still be done, and still wishes to be done by the common sense, the good nature towards life and towards others that we all inherently have at our base, fueled and animated and kept alive in the human presence of one another. As soon as we start distancing ourselves and using our artifacts, inventions, government, commercial systems, financial systems, we start saying, oh, that part that tries to get away with, well, nobody's seeing that we didn't get that right, or that we're not, that doesn't really work so ethically or equitably, let's just do it anyways. And then nothing gets done about that. They don't know, because there's, we're a bunch of robbers, basically. Humanity's a bunch of thieves. We're all like, and it's not like we default to a place where, oops, there's going to be something that we're getting, that we're not meaning to steal, and it's going to end up in our hands. And they're not saying, so let's put that someplace. No, that gets thrown out on the table, and it gets distributed among the people who hold the power. That extra, there's a place where all the money comes to, that's maybe greater than all the different little compartments that it is allocated within, but that basically sees all the earnings, all the money that comes into the company, that sees a difference, but does nothing about it. That difference they attributed possibly to mistaken mathematics or whatever. They give it a label, and then they distribute it among whoever. Free money. Free money created by human error. Our human error, the consumer's human error. Because when they make mistakes, and they're in control of most of their activities and actions, designs, and forms and systems that they operate in on their side, it gets accounted for, or they reabsorb it, or they correct it. But when the customer, the person that's obtaining their service, makes a human error, oh, that's extra money for them. Okay. Apparently this guy on the phone basically explained to me why those 59 euros, 60 euros, and all I do is surf the internet. Because I pick up my phone once every 2 months or every month to talk to my landlady, who wants to make sure that the money's in the bank. Nobody calls me on the landline, no friends. Basically have it there because I want internet. So my need is having internet access. I pay 26 euros for that internet access, and I pay additionally 12 euros, which it could be less, but I decided I want different companies. I don't want them to hold all my communication venues, because I see what the big monster does once it controls everything. So I have a different company on my cell phone, just in case, and it costs 3 euros more than what these people would charge me once a month, and I didn't want it. They keep trying to want to send me a new SIM, and I was so angry last time I burnt it. I sent it ablaze to make sure it doesn't exist anymore, and I called them like 3 times and make sure you don't activate that. I didn't ask for that. I don't want it. Yes. But still, on the 3rd month of higher cost, it turns out 60. Supposedly, it will go back to 26 or 32, because whatever. But and then the picture is even bigger, because, like I was saying, I had a problem with another phone company. I wanted to switch out from Fastweb to a different one, and they promised me that if quality wasn't good, services wasn't good, I had 30 days to return the service. They came, they drilled a hole in my wall, my window, because they put a satellite dish on the rooftop. The guys were here. They plug it into their modem, and I see the speed is only 30 Mbps. And I go, Jesus, I was getting 80 before. This is supposed to be an improvement. Oh, if you wanted the one that reaches 80 or 90 Mbps, you needed to get the premium. That's funny. Nobody ever told me that. I got pissed off. I said, I don't want the service. Well, we're not the ones that can take it down. See how the system always is designed to have you have to spend, have to do nothing new. But I'm gonna make my point towards the end of this video. So they leave, because that's only what they do. If the customer says, hey, no, I don't want it, look at this, it's not the speed you guys told me. Everybody should save money, them included, they should take down the satellite dish and take all the wiring back out and fill the hole. No, they left, and of course they never came back to fill the hole in my wall. I had to do that on my own. And then I get a letter from them because apparently I took a week, and that week was right before the weekend, and I read in the small printing, yes, but we give you back, you have a 30-day money back guarantee, but you have to make your rejection of the offer 15 days, not 30 days, 15 days for it to count towards those 30 free days. Oh, that's a detail that wasn't explained. I got so upset because the next letter was like they wanted 75 euros, and I never activated it. I never used it. The guys left. I kept using my service with Fastweb and that modem, and I never activated this ELO whatever company. Capitalism, dude. It's not. There's. I don't. It's not. This is not a rant against capitalism. I didn't pay it. Okay, let me get to why I told this story. I said I refuse to pay it, and I know that they find it more difficult to pursue things when they know damn well it's not worth it. If it's not worth it for you, it's because it really didn't for them. If it's not worth it for them to pursue those 75 euros, it's because it wasn't. It wasn't worth it. That wasn't their loss. In other words, they did not lose more than 75 euros by me canceling the service before it ever got activated. They wanted to charge me 75 euros for something I never used, and when I refused to pay it, I just didn't answer. They didn't pursue it, and that tells you they didn't pursue it. Why? Because it would cost them more money to try, do all this letter back and forth, lawyer, whatever, find out exactly how much I should pay, and then they're going to run into a person with disability. Is there something in the Constitution that says you can't take away communication services, somebody with disability? And so they don't want to run into all that, and they just don't. Anyways, what that did is that it limited, and I had another problem with another phone company. Also, maybe this time, really, it was my fault. I didn't want to. I couldn't, or I left the country. I don't remember. Legit, on their side, but it's all normal. It all falls within, normal, average human behavior. We're not perfect. We may, not do always the ethically perfect thing that moralistic and, teachings or religious teachings might tell you we're supposed to be like. That's not the human reality. The reality is that we do screw up with our children, with our friends, with and so as it turns out, I only have one option now. That there's tons of phone companies, but that bring internet to this small town, there's only 3, and the other one uses a technology that for whatever reason doesn't work on this street. I only have Fastweb. That's my sole choice. So I would have thrown them out the window by now, except that I don't have a choice of another. And you know what? It's almost like they're designed based on that, because it's all unidirectional. It all pulls in one direction, and they're all pulling only in one direction, which is suctioning money from the paying customer towards their undefined final, bladder of money that they have somewhere in their headquarters, right? And so if everybody is everybody's form has been made that way by it's human nature. Human nature uses. This is my argument with. About gun control. We have not risen to the occasion of being aware and conscientiously tackling the reality that our inventions, our logical, engineered, analytical designs, analysis, inventions, what have you, are this part of our intelligence never has no symbiosis, has no harmony with the organic living reality of the human being and human nature in its totality. And so it creates a difference, which I said at the beginning of the first part of the video, that in which inhabits random chaos, mistakes, harm, nothingness, or something that becomes something else. But the problem is, and what I'm getting at, is that in that space behaves human nature as well. And that where there is a difference, there's a void of random chaos or nothingness. But human nature operates that along with its invention. It means that it will tend to use its own instrument in the worst aspects, or in the most eccentric, individualistic, or selfish ways in which the singular mind works. Not the collective mind, which is considering everybody, family, friends, human beings, but the what this can do for me, what I want, the individualistic sort of spearhead part of our species, which lives in each and every individual alongside and together with the collective mind, the always present mind. Now, because our inventions and the products of our engineering, logical, analytical intelligence does not design in harmony or in symbiosis with the natural organic being, these instruments have the potential to be operated by the lesser nature of a monkey. In other words, it's almost, because I keep thinking of that image of the gorilla taking the rifle away from the African soldiers and then starts to shoot in all directions. It's such a funny clip in YouTube, but it renders something that happens that we live with every day. When an invention, an apparatus, a system, an analysis, a study, anything constructed by the analytical, logical intelligence of mankind, is operating an inert artifact, which could be any system, which could be a car, which can be money. It operates it with in its detachment to the rest of the human collective. Okay, let me try to take this. Now that this applies more to like government or systems or administration. I can think more of what I want out of this invention, out of this system, before and without even really caring so much about what it does to everyone else. And that's what a car allows you when you sit behind its steering wheel. All of a sudden, you're moving faster on four wheels, and the people walking by, do you really care about them? You may think for a fleeting second, hey, you want to also ride in the car, but there's another part of you that wants to go faster than everybody else and get somewhere before somebody else gets there, and other lesser parts of our human nature, which get nourished and sort of get awakened by our inventions. And temptation occurs because of invention's ability to detach us from the collective. And so, as a result, what do we have? A governing elitist class of people that revolve around the power of government, and they stick to each other and they vote each other in, and they what do you have? You have a food industry that has you eat what they want. They don't care if they're poisoning your children. What do you have? You have an artifact, a gun, that presents suddenly an instrument to human nature with which a moment of between two men who have a lot of issues, an ex-husband and a new husband, or an ex-wife and her ex-husband, or two best friends that betray each other, or somebody who's in charge of your children, and you're just a dad at school that got fed up with what, whatever the system, the school is teaching your children. You have any situation around a campfire, if you want, if two people that are suddenly very angry at each other, except one of them now has this instrument which, with the ease of a finger on the trigger, has all that power that is getting spread out and distributed in an argument. In the moment, do I really want to have the courage? Can I fist fight this person? And all of social interactions, you're listening to somebody. No, stop! Don't look at you. You're much bigger than he or she, and and all the stuff that really happens in that heated moment of discord between two people. All of a sudden, one person is in possession of a way of quickly, with a quick coldness of steel, have the power they wish to have in that argument all along. All along its spread out duration, in an instant of power, terrifying power upon the other person. In other words, with a trigger, you can win the argument. With a trigger, you can vent just how pinned up your anger is towards that person. Most people obviously just don't see that as a temptation as easy as eating a piece of candy, because we're also aware of the empathetically aware as human beings of what reality is to the other person, especially in such a up and close situation. But nonetheless, there is an effect that weapon, that gun, has on the subconscious and the decision-making process of what they end up doing, of the human being in possession of it. Which, even though it doesn't always come into play with every fight we have, let's say that every fight had one person had a gun and the other one didn't. Even though it doesn't come to play in every case, if you look at suddenly these dynamics being extended over an entire population, and you have a society where guns exist, it behooves us to have a sociological study that sees what guns actually do to the day-to-day life of a neighborhood, of families and family interaction, of police interaction with other people, of how does a gun affect? For example, with the police, you can kind of see it. You can see, imagine a police going up to somebody without guns and how they would act differently. So obviously, here's a clean, in your face potential case study of the psychological and therefore derived possible sociological effects that the guns have through the use of people and societies. Problem is that who would have tutelage over this condition, this situation, this condition that our inventions and our logical intelligence create in the space it creates by creating a void between it and human natural organic interaction? Nobody. The only ones that would have to look at that would be the ones that govern, that say, okay, we also have to. Now we're talking a lot about what everybody seems to say they're scared of AI, whatever, and now but basically that's the idea, except we've been problem AIing for a long time, since we invented our agriculture, since we invented writing, since we invented paying our bills through the internet, since we decided that police will not function as people with a certain prestige, authority, that come to interact in society in order to resolve problems, injustices, or abuses, but we will uh, arm them so that they can have the last word, basically, and represent the law in an absolutist, totalitarian way through the use of gun and the use of the law and their authority. Is very different to people having the same position in society, being the voice of logic, reason, fairness, justice, supported by a state uh, without the instrument of guns. Our world would look very different. Our societies would look very different. But there's nobody that's, for example, today the government should be looking at human error, human natural, organic, day to day, in non solid, flowing behavior, unpredictable sometimes, though predictable in an average sense, behavior of human beings, in face of the rigidity of phone companies through these digital systems, where they have all the power to tell you what you're going to get, what you're going to pay, and how you're going to be punished if you don't. That situation needs to be observed by government right now, unless we want to have a third government, which I always thought was an interesting idea, the green entity. In other words, government administrates a country's resources and its interaction with other countries. But then we have the people authority, which is like another form of government that doesn't care about the systems of any sort, administrative, governmental, financial, economic, communications, transportation, doesn't care about the efficiency of any of those systems. Its priority is what the reality of the human life is. So one did nothing wrong in assuming what these people told me, that my account was monitorable by looking at this page, and I did that, and every month I had enough money to pay my bill. It turns out the fact that I thought they had already paid themselves because it showed green that they had taken out the money, and then I later proceeded to use the rest of the money in my account when they in reality had not yet taken out their money, is not my fault. It's not my fault. It is their fault. It is their fault because they, a company, administrative system, a government, an agricultural system, a school, every single human invention needs to know that they're dealing with people. They're dealing with a natural, organic, changing forms of human living, of human thinking. There's nothing that says I know. There's no representation for human beings that says I know how a person thinks, and I know a person did not mean to steal, did not mean to take advantage of that, did not mean to get away with anything, but they honestly tried to the best they could, given what these instruments that are placed in their hand, and that voice should have equal, if not more, authority than government, than phone companies, than banks. It's a concept. It's a new concept. Now we have divided the world in a primitive expression of boss or leader, conductor, administrator, king, president, what have you, that side, and those that follow and do and obtain whatever is provided by these, and try to make the whole of life, incorporate it to the whole of life, for the purposes of the whole of life. So those, and among those are masses of poor people, masses of middle class struggling. There are also some people that are really smart at taking advantage of it and are very rich, but we're all on the other side of that. And so this concept of the the Gaia humanism of Gaia humanist entity is to have a third entity, one that has authority over both in a sense, one that says, well, I know I'm always put, in other words, an entity that always puts the whole of people first. So it would protect, for example, uh, the nurturing, healthy, loving relationship that there needs to be between two parents and their children, for example. That is just a basic given by evolution, by the form of life, universal cosmic form of life and evolution, and they protect that, and they're like this. They know exactly why everything, because the little boy looks at the dad, looks at the mom, the little girl looks at the dad, looks at the little mom, learns, does, grow up this way, grow up wanting to develop this, looking at other people, learning also from these other people as they grow up, and this is how all human beings, the development of the mind of every human being works, and so they're protecting that. They're protecting that. And wherever systems and inventions screw up in the name of running the world the best they can, but yet they end up hurting that integrity, this third entity would have the authority to say, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to first try to get to where these two parents respect each other, so that the child, who automatically will nurture themselves out of a good relationship, out of genuine love and care for them by their parents, and them getting along. And we're going to first look for those things, and then we're going to see how we can distance these two people that don't want to see each other, don't want to live together. And then so the ordering has to do with how we're designed by evolution and by life. The ordering, I'm talking about the ordering that this third entity would have in the use of its power and authority and logic. Right now we don't have that. There's a void. The only ones that should do it are government, customer protection laws, whatever. There are some, but really they're not doing anything. If a phone company can hold me hostage to only needing them, or if a phone company's monopoly, because now they're doing it in a way that if you don't pay them, they can't transfer automatically your number to another company. Before, people would have a problem, they didn't want to pay, and so they would just transfer to another company. Their number would get changed, their new modem, new router, whatever, new phone line even, and then the old company would start sending bill, hey, you can't leave without first paying this, blah, blah, blah. And so it was left that way. But now, and that, that way actually is fairer when you consider that the power originally started unfairly being put on the side of the corporation. If there exists a possibility that a corporation can, without impunity, reap benefit and profit from its customers and just walk away with it, and that exists as the last card of the situation, it means that being able to say, screw you, I'm not going to pay that, I'm going with another phone company, needs to be valid, needs to exist, because that first injustice exists. So it was balanced that way. The power was first on the side of the corporation, but ultimately, thanks to choice, the power shifted back to where it's supposed to be, the person who's handing the money. But now what are they doing? They're making it so that they are in agreement. They won't transfer your phone service to another company until you're paid with that company. So that, they're really starting to mess with the basic rights that until now are somewhat protected by the Constitution in some countries. Your right to have gas, electricity, power, and it's like companies really would drag their foot before interrupting the services, because the Constitution said their citizens need to be guaranteed. Beyond all your complications and all your messy systems of administration, the last thing you should be thinking about is prohibiting people from having access to water, electricity, communications. Now that is starting to get encroached on because nobody is there in government to say stop, stop, stop. You can't continue to charge somebody late fees and reactivation fees when there was a situation that the person paid for a product and everything was caused because landslide or dominoed out of the fact that this person paid for a sim that wasn't his. You can't do that. You can't continue going forward. You have to stop. There is no laws, there is no observation by those that would have that place in society right now. The government and law. There's nothing that protects us from power getting taken away from us in the use of our money. That is very, 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 very basic, very fundamental when it comes to justice. And it goes directly to perhaps why capitalism ends up becoming unbalanced and ends up producing, resulting in problems, creating problems, social class problems, and a bunch of problems. Could be because we're not looking at the right to retain equal power at the moment of exchange of services and money. That concept needs to penetrate government and result in tons of new laws that govern over all our services. So, in other words, they can't just take their sweet time. There needs to be a constantly updated, everyday observance of what is actually going on if you want to retain fairness of in holding power between customer and the exchange of money between customer and services. It has to be a daily thing. They just can't say, well, we have 3 months to deal with our customers, or we have 6 months to do whatever we want with them, And no, that can't happen, because in those 6 months there can't be the possibility of any mistakes happening on behalf of the corporate, the ones that have the power. So if you're going to have the power for of money exchange, and you're going to say when you take out the money and make mistakes with your website, misinforming the customer on how much money they actually still owe or don't owe, then you cannot go further more than 72 hours if a mistake has been occurred. And for that to not be the case, it means there needs to be whole new systems of monitoring, of instantaneity, verification that things are actually happening or not happening. There can't be errors that go on when somebody else has a power and you're just obligated to give them money. Nobody's protecting that. Now, government seems to have a hard time, has been demonstrating intense reliance and dependency on the corporate realm of the country. So perhaps we really need to have a third authority, a Gaia humanist, a green entity that is there to protect people, and starts off with the scientifically correct fact that all human inventions, all artifacts, artificial, logical, analytical products of human beings' intelligence put in this manner of utilization towards the building, designing, systemizing of the world, physical or conceptual, meaning organizing through what we believe are ideologies of behavior and as they relate to governing as social behavior and so forth, will always are destined are to the tendency of not fitting the human being, of scratching, of harming, of poisoning, of distorting, of asphyxiating, or whatever. And it's just they're not organic. They're the product of our artificially minded, logical, analytical intelligence, and there has to be a tutelage that looks at that spot where anything, guns, system, government, phone companies, services, cars, bicycles, abortion criteria, everything that is invented by the logic of human beings, having the predisposition to always do us wrong because they are emanated by that inertly propensed towards inertness way of reasoning will create these, will have a production of harm towards us, towards its own creator. That means it needs to be a science and an entity that observes that space, that difference in between, and is present in every instance in which it occurs. So if a new company comes up with, let's say, there's a new invention, scooters, electric scooters, and everybody's just jumping on electric scooters, and now there's a company that starts making them, and also other systems that come up because of it, financial, batteries, what have you, be produced quickly enough for the scooter, whatever. It should not be that this new company only has the government to deal with, its limitations, constraints, uh, as it already is treating people the way it believes is what they want or what they need or what have you. It would be the emergence of three entities: the people that are supposedly being satisfied by this new company, the governmental authority of the country, of the city, of whatever, political systems, and the green humanist authority entity, which is looking, well, let's see, how are people going to do, what does it do to people, when will people be able where will be the moment in which you contact, you see that the person is capable of operating this complicated little machine and they won't hurt themselves, or that where will they pay every month, and where will they learn how to use it, or what will people do with one another once a lot of them have this little scooter, and what will it do to them? How will they start behaving in reference to other people who don't have that little scooter? Will anything happen there? What would happen to the overall fabric of society? All these things that would be professionals and understanding the human mind and the human body in its interactions with our inventions, and how we're affected and how we operate our inventions, and how people who make those inventions affect us by the provision of this invention. All of this would be held and controlled and monitored and overseen and regulated by this third entity that was not about money. It was not about money. That was just about, now, of course, they would exist somehow. I don't know how. They would have salaries, or there would be schools and university towards this profession, and but their own position would not be enriched or heightened or facilitated or depleted because of the power elements that are wielded between government and the systems, the sector of systems and commerce and economy and what have you. They would have to function independently, because we were not born with money. Money is one of our inventions. And so if you are going to really care about how people live out their lives and everything that affects them, and how they're affected by everybody, and how by everything, all of these inventions, and how they will affect others through our inventions, you have to have a, how do you say it? You have to have no invested interest in either side. It's not government that names positions, names who's going to be the president or the director of this sector. It's not the economic sector that will be funding their campaigns to get there, to get to positions of higher authority. It will be something autonomous, independent, different, and really be rooted more in people who want to have that as a vocation. They want to work in this sector, in the health sector, in the engineering sector, in the communication sector, and transportation sector, the government sector. They're really interested in that, but they want to work in the body of green humanism, green humanist authority entity, the third new body that would appear in civilization, in countries. Um, you know, they're not interested in the administrative ministry of transportation and government. They're not interested in designing cars or working in the train stations. They actually like the part where people have to deal with transportation, and so they go work there, and it has no self. It only has its a self-invested interest, and its interest is the quality of life of the organic human being and its mind, its society, and its individuals in the wholeness sense. Um, yeah, I don't see how else we're going to solve, because nobody right now is caring that I just have to leave 70 euros, and hopefully November they will finally be satisfied, and I hope they're satisfied, because if in November they ask me for 70 instead of 60, I'm kind of like gonna have to pay it, because nothing gives me a choice, or I'll be left without internet, or I'll just have to use the internet on my cell phone, and that'll be the end of it. And then I will not pay them. I will not even give them back their equipment they send you the label for. That they're interested in. They send you a paid postage, whatever, so that you send them back the modem. No, I'm gonna screw them, because they abused me too much, and the right is on my side. They've had the power. They've screwed me. They've overcharged me more than even the norm, that everybody gets overpowered and screwed financially one way or another, but way, way more. So it's only fair that I make them spend some money somehow, try to deal with this administratively and make it impossible for them to resolve. Well, I go get myself another provider or something. But if nothing stops this, if you look at the world, it's like they want to control everything. You can't just leave to another country and start again. Now it's like, more and more. This is the thing about globalism. Globalism, if it's done for human reasons, for reasons of the environment, but as soon as they start talking about affecting your life, affecting what your behavior has to deal with, your living behavior, it's no longer healthy globalism. It's autocratic globalism. It's governed by a small group of people that only think in terms of themselves, and they can't think beyond the individualist, self-serving, self-interest mentality. Uh, and so that's why, that's what happened to the idea of globalism. When it first came up, the intentions were like, we're one people, one humanity, we want a clean planet, and da 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 da, there's too much waste and too many systems that compete, when really we all have the same needs. All this kind of thinking was sort of what gave rise to but it soon got ruined, because they wanted the people with power, economic power, industrial in the industrial power, always notice something that people like, trends, and what the buzz is, and then they want to empower themselves with it. They steal it, in other words, and they start commercializing the idea of green ecology, and you see it because the humanist green ecological self-sustaining mentality or science has left out a bunch of stuff that it doesn't care about. It focuses obsessively on one thing, and then completely forgot about, I don't know, toxins in the soil, toxins in the water. Toxins in the soil, toxins in the water, breathing your whole life a certain kind of air. These are things that are much more serious and grave than the planet getting a little bit warmer, and maybe some coastlines suffering an inch more of water at their shores, or what have you. No, it's worse if I ingest heavy metals and I get brain cancer. It is much worse. But toxins in the soil, toxins in the water, although it's much more serious than global warming, it seems that the only buzzword is global warming and climate change, and that's what they're all obsessed with. But what does that show you? That something else is governing the narrative, or has robbed the narrative and has made it into the things that they are interested in. Taking over the oil industry, transforming it into something else, taking it from one people, stealing it from one people so that they can have it and turn it into windmills. I don't know. And so they decided that it's going to be all about global warming, and we're still drinking heavy metals in our water, and our children are breathing motorcycle fumes when they're walking on the sidewalks, and nobody decides. Motorcycles, mopeds all across the world will have also filters, catalytic systems to filter out their fumes. No, because that's not where the air we breathe is not where the narrative is being governed right now. It's being governed around burning fossil fuels and climate change. So we have a need for someone to protect our physiology, our true green humanist wholeness as living forms that really tends to our health, to our well-being, to our sanity, our social sanity. In the natural sense, not in the sense that you need to take pills, antidepressants, and go see a psychoanalyst, but in the sense that what are we doing how do we live as a society that it would not be that would be harmful to the raising of children, for example, that kind of mental health. Having a clinic that advises a mother and his child on how to divorce the father so that the kid can have a transsexual operation at age 17 and be stuck on hormone therapy so that it can continue to believe it was born meant to be a woman instead of a little boy, would not be about mental health. Just to be clear about that, would be the opposite, would be counter mental health, counter family, counter integration, unity of society. That is health, where everybody sort of sees the same human being, not where we see, oh, that's a different kind of human being. That's one that was meant to be gay, and it's a gay human version of the human being. Homosexuality can occur in anybody else. No. It occurs to some people, and so we don't talk about why it occurred in that case, or why it occurred, why the number increases in society, or we don't talk about it. Clearly that was done by the mother. Look at the way she treats everyone, or clearly created by the father or his older brother. Clearly look at the way they treat each other or others. And you can see how it resulted in a little boy still seeking the love of that father, and now he's an adult and is doing it with adults through sexuality. No, that cannot be talked about anymore. So it's not, we're not being healthy, mentally healthy, by securing homosexuality as a group in civil society. We're being healthy when we understand as a species how it happens to some people and not others. That's when we are in control of our health, not when institutions or civil ideological, gender theoretical ideologies govern the way we should think or how to structure a civilization. That's not being healthy. A society, that's not being healthy. Healthy is knowing the body, knowing how it occurs in anybody, actually. If these conditions that affect human beings are given to that person, they will develop some homosexuality as well, because homosexuality will develop homosexuality. Human sexuality will develop homosexuality when any number of these factors and forces are at play, are happening before, after birth as well. More likely after birth, less likely also before birth, perhaps. This is when it happens. That's being healthy, is knowing ourselves, not deciding and dictating how something should be run, governed, or thought of as. That's not healthy. Healthy is making sure that we always love the children that we become pregnant with. Healthy is not having undesired pregnancies. That's healthy. It's not healthy to say, I have the freedom to kill this pregnancy easily with just the whim or the thought of one of the two parents, excluding the other one, making them inconsequential, but it's all about one of the two parents. And no, that's not healthy. That's not about how the human being has been designed by evolution and to function socially as a whole. So we also have to go back to understanding health. And once we become healthier about how we understand health, we'll see that repairing and healing, recovering, is present in every form created by nature and by evolution. Everything has a way of repairing itself, bouncing back, restoring, regrowing something that was lost. And so does human society, so does human individuals in the context of society, of our society. If we leave a person isolated, it's always going to be a little harder for them to reconstitute mental healing than if we integrate them with society. More likely that mental healing will happen the most natural way possible. But if we isolate them, and we start telling them what it's about and what they should think, and maybe a medication they should take or whatever, or what their trigger things they should avoid are, and blah blah blah, then we're obsessing with logically thinking about that unbalance instead of thinking about how it would need to be healed. All right. I'm gonna put these two together, and it's gonna be really long. It's gonna be really long. Oh well, hope somebody watches it.